This is Balde.
4-1 before half-time.
This is Davies.
And one of the Bundesliga's rising stars, Alphonso Davies.
This is Balde.
Go past Oscar Hill again, and he has for the second time in the game.
And this is Davies again. Alejandro Balde has always been a promising talent, but under Hansi Flick, he's looking like the next world-class left-back in the making.
Hansi Flick asked about you, said he was very happy with your performance, but he thought that you could improve even more.
Flick has a history of transforming raw talents into world-class players. Just look at how he turned Alphonso Davies from an explosive winger into the best left-back in the world during Bayern Munich's 2020 treble-winning season. We are now seeing the same blueprint unfolding at Barca. Flick is shaping Balde into an unstoppable force on the left flank. Unlike Davies, who was very raw when Flick started working with him, Balde had plenty of experience at the top level already. And we have to thank Xavi for that because he was the one that gave Balde the biggest opportunity to shine. You see, Balde had joined Barcelona in 2011 at the age of 8. He worked his way up the ranks of La Masia, with his exceptional speed, strength, and technical ability, making him stand out from everyone else at the academy. He really impressed during preseason in the summer of 2021 and earned himself a spot with Barcelona B. It felt like Barcelona had found their future replacement for Jordi Alba, but in that season he was barely given playing time. He sat on the bench, and with the few appearances he did make here and there, it was mainly coming on as a sub. It was clear that he had talent, but he was still very raw. That all began to change in the 2023 season. Xavi decided it was time for the passing of the torch, for Alba to become Balde's backup. It was an obvious choice. Balde's explosive pace and athleticism added another dimension to Barca's left side. Alba had been a loyal servant to the club, but it was time for that brother to go drinking tequilas with Messi in Miami. What made Balde so good that he wasn't just fast, he was also excellent at carrying the ball. He didn't move like Adama Traore, he could change directions easily, he was super agile. And of course, with how Xavi wanted to press man-to-man at times, Balde's pace was needed to both close down the players quickly and be able to recover in case the opposition beat the initial press. Flick is doing something very similar with Balde, which I will explain later in the video. In that 2023 season, Barca won La Liga dominantly, and one of the biggest reasons was because of their defending. All of their defensive metrics had been up, and the back four of Koundé, Araujo, Christensen, and Balde was rock solid. It was perfectly balanced because Koundé, as a center back, essentially at right back, offered defensive solidity, allowing Balde to have the freedom to get forward as much as he wanted. The Spaniard got 1 goal and 6 assists in his first season as a regular starter at left back. His best performance was definitely in the Catalan derby, where he got a goal and assist against the dirty club that is Espanyol. He was just way too quick and was gliding past the defenders, like this brother was doing stepovers. Pretty sure Oscar Gil still has nightmares from that match.
Balde. Constant thorn in Espanyol's right-hand side in this first half.
On top of that game, he also assisted against Real Sociedad, got 2 assists against Elche, and 1 against Betis. He was vital to the creativity of the team because remember, Xavi's Barca team was not as direct as Flick's Barca. Should come as no surprise that Balde was included in the La Liga team of the season. Seeing his incredible progress, Barca signed him to a new contract. But just when it felt like Balde was on the path to stardom, everything went downhill. In the final game of the season, he got an ankle ligament tear, which halted his development. When the 2024 season began, he looked a shadow of the guy that we saw previously. He didn't look as explosive. It was like there was an anchor weighing him down. His work rate and desire to get forward, they just weren't there. Now you could argue that this was the body language of the whole team, considering it was a very poor season. The team only really began to show intensity when Xavi announced that he was stepping down at the end of the season. Then, things got even worse for Balde. He picked up a season-ending hamstring injury in the Copa del Rey quarterfinals against Bilbao. He was in tears leaving the pitch, knowing that his season was done. This was a huge blow to the Barca team because while Joao Cancelo was good going forward, he was nowhere near as good defensively as Balde was. On the defensive end, Cancelo, well, that brother was a pylon. This was the worst thing that can happen to a youngster. We have seen how injuries can disrupt a player's career at Barca, and it felt like Balde might be on a similar path. Thankfully, that didn't happen, and Flick has rejuvenated the Spaniard. Balde looks even better than his performances in the 2023 season. Not just on the eye test, but even statistically, he has more assists in less matches than that year. Flick's high pressing system is perfect for a player like Balde because it utilizes his athleticism to its full capacity. Having a player that fast makes it so much easier to press teams when they're trying to play out of the back. In possession, the team is also far more direct under Flick, which again benefits Balde because he's great at dribbling and carrying the ball forward. In a vertical system where you're trying to get forward as quickly as possible, Balde can use his speed, while in a possession-oriented system, he's not as effective. When Flick arrived at Barca, he definitely knew what he was going to do with Balde because, well, he had done the exact same thing with Davies. Flick transformed Davies from this raw winger into the starting fullback of a sextuple winning side. The Canadian was the same profile as Balde. He was someone who was incredible at carrying the ball with his exceptional speed and athleticism. He wasn't known for being the best defensively, but he was lethal going forward every time. In fact, I can make the argument that the Davies that Flick worked with was worse than Balde. Cause think about it, it was Davies' first season playing first team football in 2020 outside of the MLS. He didn't have Balde's footballing experience as he came from Vancouver, not La Masia. Balde was learning tiki-taka, Davies was learning how to run away from polar bears and igloos. But it didn't matter because Flick transformed him into the best left back in the world that year. In that season, Davies won the Rookie of the Year for the Bundesliga and he dominated the left side in the Champions League. Flick positioned Davies in a way that his pace could bail out his poor positioning or mistakes from his teammates. That Bayern team played very similar to Flick's Barca side. They tried to win the ball as high up the pitch as possible and tried to win it as quickly as possible. Then when they had the ball, it was go, go, go. Flick's sides don't try and keep the ball just for the sake of keeping possession. They want to get into the attacking third as quickly as possible. That benefited Davies because, well, he was faster than literally everyone else on the pitch. Look at how he terrorized the Chelsea defense. Well, Flick, he's using Balde in the same way. Look at his goal against Madrid in the Supercopa. That clip of Davies cooking Barca in the 8-2, yeah, Balde has been doing the same thing now, but for Barca. It's also funny how for both Davies and Balde, the recipient of their crosses have been Lewandowski. Barca should have compared this guy to the Flash, not Spider-Man. Had to have been racially motivated, because what is this? The club needs to hire some new people for the media team. I'm free if you guys want to make less cringy content. Speaking of non-cringe content, if you guys want to improve your ball knowledge and know about stats and data on the Barca team that isn't covered in the mainstream media, you gotta check out my Patreon, link in the description. Flick didn't have that much time with Davies to transform him into a monster, and it's not a coincidence that as soon as he left, the Canadian stagnated. Now Balde, in my opinion, has an even higher ceiling than Davies because he had a better foundation. Like I said, Davies was very raw when he arrived at Bayern, but Balde, he was already a top left back in La Liga before Flick arrived. He is also a better defender than Davies. He's much better in isolated 1v1s and his positioning is more consistent than the Canadian. Don't get it twisted, it's still an area of his game that needs improving, but he's much better defensively than what Davies was showing in 2020. In fact, in the 2025 season, Balde's gotten even better defensively because it's actually been Koundé who was given more of a green light to get forward to connect with Yamal. At times, it's been the opposite of the 2023 season. Balde's been the one that stays back while Koundé pushes forward. Balde also looks physically stronger in duels. We gotta have Flick's medical team tested. Everywhere this guy goes, the players on that team, they just get insanely buff. As a result, I think Balde can reach even greater heights. Now, of course, there are many things that Balde has to work on, which makes sense. He's still very young. Not to mention that as soon as he was getting into form before, he got hindered by injuries. His decision making in the final third has to get better, knowing when to cross, when to keep possession, and when to take on players yourself. That's an area of his game that should naturally improve as he matures and gets more games under his belt. Because right now there are games where his crossing is exceptional, like his assist to Lewandowski in El Clasico and his assist to Ferran Torres in the Copa del Rey. But then there's other games where he isn't able to beat the first defender at all with his cross. His positioning both in and out of possession also needs to improve. He needs to realize when he has to overlap and when he should come short just to connect with his teammates in tight spaces. But again, this is natural development for any youngster playing in a fullback position. I think some Barcelona fans put too much hype and pressure on this guy, expecting him to be prime Dani Alves already.
I think in the world of football, people are a little bit unaccustomed for players at 19 or 21 to be the best in the world, and I've still got a lot to learn.
They want him to defend, to hold the width, and also create at an elite level. That's not all possible for a guy that's still learning how to play the position at the highest level. But the good thing is, he has qualities that cannot be taught. You cannot teach speed and athleticism. You cannot coach someone to carry the ball this smoothly. You either have it naturally or you don't. His potential is elite. I also think Balde would benefit greatly from some competition in the left back spot. Not just because competition makes players better, but also so that he can get some rest to avoid injuries in the future from being overplayed. Because right now, the difference between Balde and Gerard Martin, the difference in quality is way too big. I have no idea how Martin sees the pitch sometimes. The good thing though is that Flick understands exactly how to position Balde in a way that utilizes his strengths and minimizes his weaknesses. It's almost the exact same principles that he's applied to Lamine Yamal's career. To see what Flick's plan has been for Yamal and how he wants to make him even better, a future Ballon d'Or winner potentially, you gotta check out this video right here.